Have you ever felt a tight knot in your stomach when you're around certain people? That vague, almost inexplicable sensation that something just doesn't feel right, even when, on paper, everything appears to be perfect. That's not just anxiety or overthinking. That's your intuition speaking to you. And according to Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in analytical psychology, ignoring this inner voice could be among the most expensive mistakes you ever make in life. Welcome to a deep exploration into the hidden realms of intuition and destiny, as seen through the lens of Jungian psychology. Today, we're diving into the subtle yet powerful signals that emerge from the unconscious. Those quiet whispers that often tell us when it's time to step away from someone, even if every rational thought is pulling us in the opposite direction. Carl Jung, one of the most groundbreaking thinkers of the 20th century, devoted much of his life to understanding what he called the collective unconscious. Unlike his mentor Freud, who focused primarily on personal drives and traumas, Jung believed that intuition wasn't just an emotional reaction, it was a direct message from the deepest layers of our psyche, connected to a universal intelligence that transcends personal experience. Take a moment to think. How many times in your life have you dismissed that quiet inner warning about a person or situation, only to discover later that your intuition had been right all along? Jung would say that was no coincidence. What was happening was that your unconscious mind had picked up on subtle cues long before your conscious awareness could catch up. Jung defined intuition as perception via the unconscious. It's as if we each possess an internal radar, one that detects the true intentions, emotional undercurrents, and subtle energies of those around us, often before any obvious signs emerge. This radar is especially sensitive in our relationships, where emotional and energetic exchanges are most intense and impactful. Yet in today's modern world, with its endless distractions and noise, we've been conditioned to distrust this internal guidance system. We tend to rationalize away our feelings, justify misaligned connections, and cling to relationships we instinctively know are no longer serving us. Jung noted that one of the primary reasons we do this is fear, particularly the fear of loneliness. According to Jung, our fear of being alone can easily override our deeper knowing. This fear can drive us to remain entangled in relationships that are no longer aligned with our path of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming our true, most authentic self. And this concept of individuation lies at the heart of Jungian psychology. Jung believed that every person we allow into our lives plays a role in our psychological and spiritual evolution. Some people propel us forward, encouraging growth and transformation. Others, however, keep us stuck in unconscious cycles, repeating old wounds, reactivating unresolved shadows, and hindering our path to wholeness. But how can we tell the difference? Jung identified several telltale signs that our intuition may be warning us about someone's place or misplacement in our lives. The first is energetic exhaustion. Have you ever noticed that after spending time with certain individuals, you feel completely drained, as though you've just run an emotional marathon? Jung saw this as a red flag, a sign of energetic imbalance. Some relationships are simply not reciprocal. They consume more than they give, leaving you depleted rather than nourished. And that's not in your imagination. It's your unconscious trying to alert you that something is off, that the connection may be blocking your growth. The second sign is the repeated activation of your shadow. Jung coined the term shadow to describe those hidden or repressed parts of ourselves, the anger, jealousy, fear, or insecurity we often try to bury. When someone consistently triggers these darker aspects of you, they may be reflecting back unintegrated pieces of your psyche. While these mirrors can be valuable for inner work, a relationship that constantly keeps you in a reactive state, without room for healing or growth, can become toxic over time. Take a moment to reflect on your current relationships. Is there someone who consistently brings out the worst in you? Someone around whom you can't be your best, most empowered self? Jung wouldn't call that a coincidence. He'd say that person is activating unresolved parts of you, but if no evolution is occurring, it may be time to step away. The third sign is a dissonance between what someone says and how they make you feel. Jung was a master at spotting the disconnect between verbal communication and the energy behind it. Have you ever heard someone say all the right things, but deep down you simply didn't believe them? That's your intuition sensing inauthenticity. Your conscious mind can be fooled by pretty words, but your unconscious always perceives the truth beneath the surface. This reminds me of a case Jung once described. A woman had a long-standing friendship with someone who, on the surface, always offered kind and supportive words, yet every time she shared a personal success, she felt a pang of discomfort, an inexplicable unease. Upon closer examination, she realized her friend was subtly projecting envy and competition, which contradicted her outward expressions of encouragement. Her intuition had picked up on this long before her mind could make sense of it. The fourth sign is the presence of recurring dreams. Jung viewed dreams as direct communications from the unconscious. If someone keeps appearing in your dreams, in unsettling or threatening situations, your psyche might be trying to deliver a message. Pay attention to the symbols and emotions in these dreams. They hold crucial insights into the true nature of your connection with that person. One common dream symbol is murky or contaminated water, especially when tied to specific people. Jung interpreted water as a symbol of the unconscious. When it appears cloudy in connection to someone, it may indicate that the relationship is polluting your psychological well-being in ways that are not yet fully conscious. The fifth, and perhaps most subtle but also the most powerful sign, is negative synchronicity. Jung coined the term synchronicity to describe those meaningful coincidences that feel too perfectly aligned to be random. When a relationship is not in harmony with your path, the universe often begins sending gentle warnings, recurring obstacles, constant misunderstandings, or a growing sense of resistance every time you try to connect with that person. Notice how your life flows when you're around different people. With some, everything seems to fall into place. Positive synchronicities appear, and the connection feels effortless. With others, it feels like you're constantly swimming against the current. Jung didn't chalk this up to bad luck. He saw it as evidence that the relationship might be working against your destiny, not with it. In relationships that no longer nurture our growth or align with who we're becoming, certain unconscious archetypes can hold us captive. The first is what Jung referred to as the savior archetype. If you find yourself repeatedly drawn to people you feel compelled to fix or rescue, you might unknowingly stay in harmful dynamics under the illusion that your love, patience, or sacrifice will eventually transform the other person. Jung warned against this psychological trap, describing it as one of the most dangerous forms of self-deception. The belief that you can fundamentally change someone else is often a projection of your own inner struggle. In truth, the only thing within your power is to transform your relationship with that person, and sometimes that transformation includes the recognition that the healthiest relationship is no relationship at all. The second archetype is the victim, a psychological pattern where we remain in destructive situations because, at a subconscious level, we derive some kind of benefit. This could be the comfort of being seen as the martyr, the sympathy from others, or simply a way to avoid confronting our own responsibility. Jung considered this archetype particularly insidious because it disguises itself as virtue, sacrifice, loyalty, or endurance, when in reality it may be a form of escapism. The third force is the shadow, those parts of ourselves we disown, only to project them onto others. This projection can create obsessive attachments, especially to people we view as deeply toxic or triggering. Jung observed that our inability to walk away from such individuals often stems from an unconscious attempt to resolve our own inner conflict through the external relationship. We chase resolution in them rather than turning inward. So do you recognize any of these dynamics within yourself? Simply becoming aware of which archetype might be operating in your life is already a profound act of liberation. Jung proposed a powerful introspective method to bring clarity in moments of emotional confusion, active imagination, or what we might call a conscious dialogue with the inner self. In a state of deep relaxation, envision yourself face to face with your inner wisdom, a wise, timeless figure residing within you. Ask this figure specific questions about the relationship that troubles you. What emerges may surprise you. Unexpected images, insights, or sensations often offer clarity where logic has failed. Those who have spent years entangled in confusion about a relationship often report receiving crystal-clear guidance when they open themselves to this form of inner dialogue, untouched by the noise of the ego. Another valuable Jungian tool is dream amplification. If someone appears repeatedly in your dreams, take note. Record every detail of the dream, then amplify the symbols, explore their meanings, associations, and emotional resonance. Often the hidden truth about a relationship has already surfaced in your dreams, waiting only to be decoded. And if, after all of this inner work, you reach the conclusion that it's time to step away, Jung offered a uniquely compassionate approach. While many psychological frameworks emphasize dramatic confrontations or abrupt severing of ties, Jung saw distancing as an act of inner integrity. It doesn't always require explanations or declarations. Sometimes the most authentic path is one of quiet release. He wrote that the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming your truest self, often demands letting go of what no longer resonates with your soul. This departure can take many forms: a slow and subtle fading, the creation of healthy boundaries, or an explicit break. What matters most isn't the method, but the intention behind it. To separate from someone not out of resentment, blame, or guilt, but from a place of deep understanding that this parting serves your psychic evolution, turns what could be trauma into transformation. Importantly, to step away from someone is not to judge them. Jung held a more nuanced view. A person may be kind, even admirable, but simply not aligned with your unique path. Some connections are beautifully suited to a specific chapter of life, but become misaligned in the next. This brings us to one of Jung's more spiritual concepts, that some relationships serve a karmic or archetypal purpose. They enter our lives not to stay, but to teach. Once their lesson has been fully integrated, the relationship dissolves naturally. Holding on beyond that point only prolongs suffering for both people involved. One of Jung's patients recounted how she clung to a long-dead friendship, afraid of the sadness that would come with letting go. But during analysis, she dreamt of a forest with two diverging paths. She understood then that both she and her friend needed to walk separate roads in order to grow. What she had seen as failure or abandonment became a shared release, an act of love toward herself and toward the other. And sometimes, paradoxically, distance can allow for a more genuine bond. Jung noticed that physical or emotional separation, especially within families, often dissolves the illusions we have about one another, the projections, the roles, the unmet expectations. In that quiet space, we can finally perceive the other not as we needed them to be, but as they truly are. One of the cornerstones of Jungian thought is the integration of the shadow. When stepping away from someone who constantly activates your darker sides, anger, jealousy, defensiveness, it's vital not just to break the bond, but to reflect. What part of your disowned self was being mirrored through that person? Ask yourself, what specifically irritated me about them? What qualities did I find intolerable? According to Jung, those emotional spikes often point directly to unhealed or rejected parts of our psyche. If we don't work to integrate these aspects, we run the risk of repeating the same relationship patterns again and again, a cycle Jung called compulsive repetition. A helpful method here is reflective writing. Compose a letter to the person you're letting go, not to send, but to express your truth. Then, write a response from the perspective of your inner self, as if the traits you rejected in that person were facets of you seeking acknowledgement. This exercise can uncover startling insights about how our outer conflicts mirror our inner fragmentation. Jung also highlighted the importance of ritual when navigating major emotional transitions. Our psyche processes change not just through thought, but through symbolic action. A ritual can be as simple as burning the unsent letter, revisiting a place that was meaningful in the relationship to say goodbye, or creating a private ceremony to mark the closing of that chapter and the opening of another. These symbolic acts allow your unconscious to register the ending on a deeper level, something logic alone can't achieve. Often overlooked in this process is the stage Jung described as the fertile void. After releasing a relationship that was central to your emotional life, it's completely natural to experience a period of emptiness, of silence, confusion, even loneliness. Modern culture tends to fear this void, rushing to fill it with distractions, busyness, or new attachments. But Jung taught that this empty space is sacred. It is precisely within this stillness that new psychic energy emerges. Parts of your true self, silenced during the relationship, begin to return. Just as a field must lie fallow to regain its fertility, your soul often needs a season of rest before it can bloom again. One of Jung's patients spoke of ending a 10-year relationship and resisting the urge to rush into something new. Instead, she devoted a full year to herself, rediscovering passions, nurturing intuition, and allowing long-buried aspects of her identity to re-emerge. When she finally opened her heart again, the relationships she attracted were of a profoundly different quality. They met her not in her loneliness, but in her wholeness. Let us be honest, though, separating from someone, especially when there's deep emotional attachment, is rarely a linear process. Jung noted that even the most self-aware individuals experience periods of doubt, nostalgia, or idealization. You might find yourself questioning your decision, remembering only the good times, or wondering if you made a mistake. These feelings are not signs of failure. They are simply the ego's resistance to change, its desperate clinging to the familiar, even when it no longer serves you. The key is not to eliminate these doubts, but to recognize them as part of the natural unfolding of individuation. One particularly helpful technique during these phases is what Jung called the synchronicity journal. When uncertainty arises, begin to document small, meaningful coincidences, the subtle affirmations the universe offers. Over time, these moments can become guideposts, gently reaffirming your inner knowing. Significant coincidences, revelatory dreams, or even casual encounters that confirm your intuition. These seemingly minor moments are often reflections of a deeper truth. You may also notice subtle or even profound shifts in your physical or emotional well-being, following a decision that aligns with your inner compass. Keeping an objective journal of these signs frequently unveils patterns that reaffirm the wisdom embedded in your intuitive choice. One of the most fascinating aspects of Jungian theory is how it connects the act of distancing oneself from certain individuals to a person's broader life purpose. Jung believed that every individual is born with a unique calling, a destiny that transcends the expectations of society, family, or even one's own conscious ambitions. Often, the people from whom you need to detach are precisely those, whether consciously or unconsciously, keeping you from walking your destined path. This becomes particularly clear when we consider Jung's concept of ego inflation. Sometimes the individuals closest to us inflate our egos with praise, applauding behaviors or achievements that, while socially acceptable or even celebrated, are ultimately disconnected from our authentic self. Ironically, such praise can be more damaging than direct criticism, as it seduces us into maintaining a false identity. One case Jung shared was of a talented artist who was consistently encouraged by her family to remain within the family business. Her creative gifts were downplayed, subtly discouraged, while her practical contributions were lauded. It was only when she consciously stepped away from this dynamic, physically and emotionally, that she was finally able to reconnect with her true artistic calling. This example illustrates a critical Jungian principle. When support from others reinforces a version of you that isn't true, it's not truly support, it's entrapment. Another vital indicator is your life energy, or what Jung called the libido, not just sexual energy, but the broader stream of psychic vitality that flows through your being. If you consistently feel drained, uninspired, or emotionally depleted after interacting with someone, that is a red flag. That person may be blocking the natural flow of your psychic energy. Visualize your energy like a flowing river. Some relationships are like rocks that create cascades, adding movement and vitality. Others are like dams, halting your flow entirely. Your intuition knows the difference. The only question is, are you willing to listen? Jung once recommended asking yourself a deceptively simple question: who would I become if this person were no longer in my life? Let your imagination explore that scenario freely. No guilt, no judgment. The answer often reveals hidden dimensions of your identity, facets that may have been repressed or distorted by the dynamics you're currently living. This brings us to another foundational Jungian concept: the difference between loneliness and what he called solitude. Loneliness is the pain of disconnection, the aching absence of another. But solitude, true solitude, is a fertile communion with your innermost self. Many remain in unfulfilling relationships out of fear of loneliness. But for Jung, the ability to be fully and peacefully alone was essential for the process of individuation, the deep psychological journey toward wholeness. It is in conscious solitude that we most often meet the unconscious. Our dreams speak louder, our purpose becomes clearer. As Jung eloquently put it, the capacity to be alone is the condition for the capacity to love. Only when we are no longer terrified of being alone can we enter relationships freely rather than out of fear or dependency. And in doing so, the quality of our relationships transforms profoundly. A practical Jungian exercise to strengthen this capacity is active contemplation. Set aside regular time to be truly alone, free from distractions. Simply observe the flow of your thoughts and feelings without judgment. This cultivates your connection to your intuition and reduces the need for external validation, making it far easier to walk away from what no longer resonates with your authentic self. It's important to understand that stepping away from someone is not merely an external action. It initiates an internal transformation. Every significant relationship creates what Jung referred to as a complex, a constellation of memories, emotional patterns, and energy within the psyche. Even after physical separation, these complexes remain and require conscious engagement. Jung proposed tools like active imagination to work directly with these inner structures, allowing your inner world to evolve alongside the changes in your external reality. As part of this process, many experience what Jung called the dark night of the soul, a period of psychological descent and deep introspection following the end of a meaningful connection. But far from being a sign that something has gone wrong, this inner darkness is often the precursor to profound transformation. As Jung famously said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." The suffering that may accompany your decision to walk away is not proof of error, but often confirmation that you are finally moving in the right direction. Perhaps the most profound lesson Jung offers on this topic is this: sometimes walking away from someone is the greatest act of love you can offer, not just to yourself, but to them. By releasing a relationship that has become stagnant, limiting, or inauthentic, you make room for both individuals to grow, to discover more aligned connections, and to blossom into their truest selves. One patient of Jung remained entangled in a long-standing friendship out of loyalty, even though the connection no longer nourished either of them. When she finally had the courage to step back, she experienced a deep sense of liberation. Years later, she learned that her former friend too had flourished, finding new directions that had only become possible after the old bond was released. As we near the end of this exploration, I want to leave you with a final Jungian reflection. Your intuition, especially when it urges you to walk away, is not just a fleeting feeling. It is the voice of your destiny speaking. Jung believed that each of us is on a unique path of individuation, a journey of becoming whole. And the relationships we nurture or release play pivotal roles in shaping that path. So I ask you, are you truly listening to your intuition? Are you honoring the inner signals that tell you who is meant to remain in your life and who no longer aligns with your becoming? Or are you allowing fear, guilt, or social expectations to drown out that inner wisdom? Remember this: every time you choose to honor your truth, every time you step away from what no longer reflects who you are, you're not merely shifting external circumstances. You are declaring to the universe and to your deepest self, I choose authenticity. I choose my path of individuation. I choose to become who I was always meant to be. And as Jung discovered in decades of guiding others through this process, when you make this declaration with clarity and conviction, the universe responds. Synchronicities emerge. New connections, ones that reflect your essence, begin to appear. And step by step, you find yourself walking a path that feels strangely right, as if you were always meant to be on it. If this message resonated with you, if you recognized signs from your own intuition urging you to let go, know that you are not alone. Generations of seekers have walked this path before you, and the timeless wisdom of Carl Jung reminds us that the most courageous act of love we can offer ourselves is this: to honor our truth. If this exploration touched something deep within you, I invite you to share your experience. What intuitive sign have you been ignoring? What brave step have you recently taken to honor your journey? Your story may be exactly what someone else needs to hear right now. And if you haven't already, subscribe and ring the bell so you won't miss future explorations into the timeless insights of Carl Jung and how they illuminate the path of the soul. Because the journey of self-discovery is the most important you will ever undertake. And as Jung said, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. Thank you for accompanying me on this inner journey. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue uncovering the hidden wisdom of the psyche through the lens of Carl Jung.